Assignment video. So this assignment will lead you to enter the course, and it'll also help you to understand a little bit about American history, and it will also give you 5% of your total grade, which will begin to give you enough sort of a push for this short-term class to give you an A leading into the assignment. So you'll be starting out, if you do this well, starting out with an A, and then from there, you will be able to then, it's sort of like you're on top of the hill, and it's easier to maintain when you're on top of the hill than it is for you to have to slog down the hill. But nevertheless, this is your first assignment for this class. Now, this assignment is going to open up at 8 o'clock on June 6th, and it will close at midnight on the same day. So when you go to your Canvas pane, you will click on this assignment bar, and you will see under task, it listed enter the course autobiography assignment and 5%. These tabs here are orientation and assignment videos. So evidently what you've done is you've clicked on this assignment video, or I've sent you a message to click on it, and you have gone and watched this video. So what you want to do is sometime within the next, say, 13 to 14 hours or so, you want to click on this, and it's going to lead you to the assignment. Now, the assignment here, as when this opens up, it's going to give you some information about the assignment. So what you are going to do here is just basically write an autobiography of yourself in 500 to 1,000 words. Now, the reason why you're doing this is a couple of fold. Number one, since this is an online class and it's not an in-person class, it's like showing up for the first day of class. So if you complete this, it's like you've showed up for the first day of class. And of course, obviously, if you don't complete it, it's like you skipped the class. And so there are people who are waiting to get in and that sort of thing. And also, you're supposed to enter the course. California law means you have to do something to show that you're ready, willing, and able to take the course. So I have this first blurb here that explains all of that. And so what I'm wanting you to do here is to tell me a little bit about yourself. So you are going to write an autobiography. Now, part of this, the reason why I do this is that, number one, we try to pack in these short-term courses as much as we can about American history. And one of the things that I want you to do is to go to this website and read about slave narratives. So when you click on that tab, it's going to give you an introduction to slave narratives. Now, what slave narratives are essentially, after the Civil War, there were about 4 million people who had been slaves. And I would suppose probably about of that 4 million, probably, let's say maybe a quarter, maybe 33%, something to that nature, were old enough to really know what slavery was like. And of course, there were people who had escaped from slavery in the 1840s, 1850s, who were able to tell their stories, write their books. So there were a number of people like Frederick Douglass, who wrote his own autobiography. He escaped from slavery. You'll read a little bit about Frederick Douglass as we move through towards the end of the course. But there were people who were writing, who were escaped from slavery or who had been slaves, who wrote about their experiences as a slave. And there were also, at the same time in the 19th century, there were lots of works, classic texts of what we call American literature, things like Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn, etc., that talked a lot about what life was like for Americans during the time period. So what these slave narratives were about people telling their own personal stories. And what you will hear from the lecture, the history of what is history, you will hear me explain to you about this idea that throughout history, oftentimes people who were marginalized didn't have the opportunities to tell their story. Well, now you have an opportunity to do so. I do this every single year And I'm amazed at the most fascinating and interesting stories that I get from students. People who've come here from other countries, people who've escaped from, this was many years ago, right? People who escaped from behind the Iron Curtain. There were people who were from the Midwest or from the South who've decided to come out to LA to become actors, actresses, people looking for better lives, all kinds of things. And also, what we do is that I've been able to kind of see that there are direct linkages between people's stories, student stories, and the stories of former slaves, in the sense that everyone has a story to tell, right? So as the Amos Weber once said, the famous 19th century former slave once said, that we all have got history, right? So I want you to read this text, and it's just this one page all the way down here to importance of the project to the nation. And then when you go back, what you're going to do is that you're going to write between 500 and 1,000 words, a brief historical autobiography sketch of yourself. You're going to tell me your story. And then at the end of this story, I want you to tell me what is the importance of slave narratives to American history. So once you've read the text, you'll get a good understanding of what slave narratives are. If you're not quite sure, you can do some more background research on your own. Now, what you should do in here is you should describe some information about yourself. So I ask you, you should describe some information about your experience in taking history courses. Have you ever taken history courses before? You should tell me about your career or personal goals, right? What are you planning to do once you get your education? Are you just here for the knowledge? Are you trying to get a bachelor's degree, master's degree, so you can go off and become a professional? How do you like to be called? Mr., Mrs.? Do you, your personal pronouns, he, she, they, we, how, what have you? And any other information you'd like to share with me about yourself. Now, don't share anything to me that you feel uncomfortable about sharing. Now, some students will say, well, I don't really feel comfortable about sharing anything about myself. Well, yeah, that may be true. So then what you need to do then is then figure out how to tell your story in a way that is truthful, but at the same time doesn't necessarily help provide me with some things that you don't want me to know. And this will help you, I think, in the long run, because we're going to talk a little bit about this, about the idea of history is about story. When we get into primary source analysis, the idea here is that you want to get into the habit of being able to write the story. And so this is what this text is for. Now, no one else will be able to see your autobiography. Sometimes students will write things like, hello, everyone. Well, I'm the only one who gets to see this, so I don't share it with anybody. Now, you can be creative as possible with this. And what I mean by creatively, if there are anecdotes you want to talk about, or there's some things that you find to be funny or interesting, if you want to focus in on one particular thing. Sometimes I've had students, like I had a student for once who parents forbid them to ever watch TV while they were growing up all the way through high school. The only time they ever got a chance to watch TV is when they went over to somebody's house or they were at some place and they were like at a restaurant where they had TVs. But generally speaking, they didn't watch TV. So they talked about the idea of sitting around as they were adults, and people would be talking about things, and they simply wouldn't have any idea about, Friends, right? The show Friends or anything else by that nature, right? So from that perspective, if you want to share with me some detailed things that you find to be amusing or interesting about yourself, then you can do so. Now, what you're going to do with that is that there's going to be a box that you're going to be able to click on. I don't have it here, but you'll be able to click on it and it's going to open up and you're going to actually type in that box. It's a text box. Now, unlike the other assignments where you're going to upload a document, this is one where you're not going to have to do that. Now, once you complete this, then you will have entered the course. I will grade it and generally give you your grade, and then you'll be well on your way. Now, what you need to do is that you're going to read here the bio, or the rubric, course rubric. Now, what this course rubric does is that it tells you what you need to do to get a top grade, which I call exemplary. So what you're going to want to do is read this, and to make sure that you have pretty much done all the things that you need to do to get these top grades. And so literally what I have here is you can get 100, 85, 70, and 0, an unsatisfactory. If you just basically write one or two sentences, then you don't meet any of the criteria. So the rubric will tell you exactly what I'm looking for in the rubric, and of course there's some leeway here. Now, one of the things that I notice that students do all the time is that they write the bare minimum. They write 400, and it said if it's 500 words I'm looking for, they write 499. If it's 1,000 words that I'm looking for, they write 999. So what I'm expecting for you to do is to write more, right? The pet peeve that many faculty members have is that you just do barely enough. If you want 100, a top grade, you've got to do more than just the basic minimum. You've got to exceed that to get the top score. If you don't exceed that, then you will get just a basic grade. Okay, so this is the assignment, the autobiography assignment, and it should help you to get well on your way. Good luck to you.